Hello, my name is Alan Leister, and this is my extra credit assignment reviewing sections of the book on tyranny. As a side note, before I begin, I kind of just want to make the note that everything that I talk about in this lecture is from an objective, non-biased standpoint to really get the most out of this. All right, let's hop right into it. The first lesson I find to be the most important in the book on tyranny is lesson 19, Be a Patriot. I chose this because patriotism is the first defense to stopping tyranny. In the book, it describes as patriotism is the opposite of nationalism in going about what patriotism is and what it isn't. I also chose this because certain groups and individuals flaunt American negligence while ignoring worse conditions in other places. As an example, I tend to look at climate change for that reason. There's plenty of people that love to talk about how America is failing in the battle against climate, yet fail to look at countries like China and India, which have a bigger responsibility to the endangering the climate. Also, the reason I chose this too is a sense that people are getting confused by, of the sense that national pride doesn't equal nationalism. Having pride for your country or having pride for the people in your country does not mean that you're nationalistic or you don't like other people. And also, talking bad about other countries that are generally bad, such as a North Korea or a China, doesn't also mean that you're being nationalistic. Current real-world relevance for this lesson is perhaps the ongoing debate of the perception of President Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Regardless of what your beliefs are in terms of whether you perceive Trump and Republicans as nationalists or patriotic, it provides a dangerous rhetoric to keep assuming that they are nationalists, because all that will really end up doing is driving people to that side even more frivolently, and they won't hear any other options. So it actually does provide worse. It provides worse than it does actual good. Next lesson. Next one I believe that was really important was lesson 3, which is Beware the One-Party State. I chose this because currently in America we are dealing with an alarming rise of socialist values and socialist elected politicians, such as the rise of Bernie Sanders in the presidential races of 2016 and 2020, but also with representatives such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilion Presley. It's no coincidence that socialist values are rising with the political change. I also chose this because the two-party system is definitely superior than a one-party state. However, I believe that it could be even better in America if they would add more parties to allow to have an influence and say, such as Libertarian, Green Party, and even Independent. The downside to a one-party state, or the downside the downside to a two-party system, my bad, is an ideological battle and gridlock. By ideological battle, I just mean the separations of beliefs in terms of people moving farther left and farther right, which could, in effect, reach back to fascism, which would not be a good thing. But also in the sense that you promote gridlock with a two-party system, in that not much gets dealt with. However, these downsides, except for the going to fascism part, are extremely better than any one-party state system has going for them. A current real-world relevance for this is, if you look at the list of countries listed below and their leaders, Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin of Russia, Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, and Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these people have in common that they are dictators or authoritarian leaders in a one-party state system, and their countries are absolutely just horrible in terms of how they're run and how they treat their people. So, next lesson is lesson 2, Defend Institutions. One of the reasons I chose this is that institutions across this country are what make us American, as the book on tyranny tries to make the example of. Um, Regardless of what the institution is, there was a reason it was put in there in the first place. Although there are institutions that are not good, they need to be defended from the left and the right. The left has their agenda to take out some institutions, and so does the right. And these institutions that are made should be written in stone in a hypothetical sense. And when I say should be, like, the stuff that should be written in stone is mainly the stuff in our amendments. The amendments are there as not as a living, breathing constitution, but they're there as a standard that needs to be upheld. Current real-world relevance of this is attacks on the Second Amendment right. Unfortunately, in our country, there has been a extreme amount of uptick in gun violence in America. And as the old saying goes, a few apples spoil the barrel. That shouldn't be how our laws are made. Law-abiding citizens shouldn't be punished because there are people out there that make bad decisions and are just terrible people overall. However, also as well, having the Second Amendment is more than just the right to owning guns. It also provides a protection for our First Amendment rights. As the saying goes, the Second Amendment was made to protect the First Amendment. So there's that. All right. Next lesson is lesson 14, establish a private life. The reason I chose this is because in the international community, privacy is a human right. And in our American Constitution, it's part of the Fourth Amendment. It's also mentioned in a couple of amendments, but it's primarily in the Fourth. And another reason I chose this is because it's currently under siege from government agencies and corporations. The NSA, the CIA, and the FBI basically are chomping at the bit to take away these privacy rights to know more about people. And one of the things that got them even more powerful is the enacting of the Patriot Act after 9/11. Corporations too also provide a lack of privacy. Facebook, Twitter, apps you use on your phone. These are all things that are allowing people to be more exposed into the public and don't allow them to have a private life. Current real-world relevance for this is possible contact tracing in the future. Due to coronavirus, what you hear on the news a whole bunch recently is that contact tracing is going to have to become prevalent in order to stop the spread. And there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to be voluntarily going to be contact traced for the government. It's just not going to happen. Also, the rise in VPN servers. People want their internet history protected, and VPNs have become extremely popular over the last couple years. And the next lesson I find to be the most important is lesson 18, be calm when the unthinkable happens. Why I chose this is because one of the reasons is the media has a tendency of fear-mongering, which has negative implications. If you've ever watched a broadcast of ABC World News at night, the beginning intro is very dramatic with all of the worst things at the beginning, and they save the best for last, but most people are tuned out by that point. Rights have been stripped on a federal and state level. I'll get to the state level in a minute, but for federal level, such as for like the Patriot Act, that has been a huge violation of privacy rights, but also people tend to forget that, like example, when Edward Snowden exposed the NSA for spying on people back in 2013, that is a right of privacy that's being stripped away from people. And unfortunately, I chose this as well because this is a bipartisan issue that people overlook. There are Democrats and Republicans alike that their goal is to promote more people to getting into the public space and not letting them have private lives. And this isn't a good thing. Current real-world relevance, coronavirus. Yes, coronavirus has basically ruined everything in America up to this point and how we deal with stuff. But in terms of this lesson, coronavirus has really had an impact on the state level in terms of how rights are stripped away. There are certain states right now, depending on where you live, where people are being fined for attending church, which that's supposed to be protected by the First Amendment to express your religion in a safe location. And also, it's taking people. Some states have taken away the rights for people to purchase guns, claiming that it's non-essential. Yet there's other things that they define as essential, which doesn't make much sense. So that's just my little tidbit on that. But that's still real-world relevance of how that's happening. And thank you. I really hope you enjoyed watching.